And Shaquille O'Neal was on Jimmy Kimmel Live recently, and he was asked about super teams, Kelvin. Here's what he said.
If you were playing right now, which team would you rather be on?
Not one of those teams.
No, I would Milwaukee or something.
I'm from the era where guys wanted to compete and beat each other. So I would wait and see who's teaming up and doing that, and I would go on the team that needs a superstar, and I'll teach them guys how to beat the super teams.
Lot he said there. I mean, even him saying, I'm from the era where guys wanted to compete and beat each other. That's a little bit of a slight.
That's a whole lot of a slight.
Right.
I can't
more
wait.
than a little bit.
Look, because
I'm going to let
guest,
you go first. No, I'm going to let you go first because I know you want to weigh in.
Ooh.
And I'll see if I have to jump on you.
All right.
Or if I agree. So I'm going to let you have the floor now.
I'm ready to come into the ring and knock somebody out, and it would be Shaq. Okay, but I can't knock him out. He's too big. That's not the point.
Figuratively.
The point is
verbally.
Look at the man. If that ain't, what is it, the pot calling the kettle black? Listen to this. Shaquille O'Neal was drafted, fortunately, by Orlando, but who did he have? He had Penny next to him. Then he goes to the Lakers, and they had Kobe Bryant. But then after that, he goes to Miami because he saw a young D-Wade flourish, and he was like, ooh, that boy, I can ride with him to the championship. Then after that, he goes and sees, well, Steve Nash is having all these MVP years. In fact, he even stole one from me. Let me go play with Steve Nash. And then he said, boy, that LeBron James looked like he might be the best thing smoking. Let me go play with LeBron. And Shaq, for the rest of his career, was going around trying to create super teams and jumping on teams and trying to make the, and be paired up with somebody.
Enough of the madness. All right. Apparently, we had 1 hour of peace, but it's about to be on right now. All right, I got to stop you because you just misrepresented some major history. Number one, you're right. He's drafted by Orlando. Penny Hardaway comes and joins him and is drafted by him as well. And they could have been one of the best duos in NBA history had not injuries failed Penny. And obviously Shaq left as a free agent to go to the Lakers, as you said. But Kobe was a rookie. Don't act like he went to play with some 18-year-old high school kid that nobody save Jerry West knew was going to be as good as he was. He was a 13th pick after all. He wasn't hyped like LeBron James.
Right, I'll give you that. Yes.
All right. Then he was traded to Miami. He wasn't a free agent saying, let me go play with D-Wade.
You don't think he had something to say?
He was traded there.
You don't think he had something to say where he was going?
No. And even if he did, that was 2004. Yeah, Wade had a nice rookie year, but, you couldn't have known Wade was going to become what he did.
Knew. Shaq even said it. I saw him down there, and I was saying to myself, that boy can play, and I would love to play with him. Matter of fact, I call him Flash.
That's fine, but it's not comparable to what these guys are doing today. And I'm not one that kills the guys today. I'm just saying that you can't put Shaq being traded to Miami to play with D-Wade comparable to what these guys. Hold on, let me go to the rest of them.
Go ahead.
Steve Nash. Shaq was done by that point. And who was Steve Nash for somebody to be like, oh, I got to play with him? Yeah, two-time MVP. Never even reached the NBA Finals.
Whoa.
Nobody's looking at Steve Nash like he's about to carry me. Never reached the NBA Finals. Shaq was past his prime. That was Phoenix saying, let me get Shaq up in here. And again, I believe, Rob G, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that was a trade. Then Cleveland, that was a trade. And again, Shaq was a shell of himself when he played with LeBron in Cleveland. So you got some revisionist history up here. I noticed that's a trend among y'all Detroit cats.
We got some revisionist history. If you're telling me who wanted to play with Steve Nash, there's many people we don't even know after or before Steve Nash.
Both trades.
Amari Stoudemire, we ain't even heard from him except taking red wine baths since Steve Nash. Sean Marion, we ain't really heard much from him. I mean, I'm not saying these were bad players.
All he did was go to Dallas and win a championship.
I'm not saying they didn't have a great career, but careers were at their peak running with Steve Nash. And
they never got to the finals.
I'm not even the biggest Steve Nash fan, but what I'm saying, don't have revisionist history make like Steve Nash wasn't balling.
Shaq got traded to Phoenix. You missing the main point. I agree. Nash was nice, but I'm just saying, Shaq, all of these were trades.
But all of these were trades calculated by Shaq. It wasn't like out of the blue.
No, they weren't.
Okay.
No, they weren't. No, they weren't. They weren't trades calculated by Shaq. They weren't Anthony Davis Paul George type trades.
I will
Not
concede,
even close.
I will concede that they weren't, hey, let me make this announcement in February that I want to go play with the Lakers. I'm conceding that. But let me also say this. One of the things that Shaq, you can go even back in the 80s, these guys, they don't get is these kids were drafted into whatever the situation is, right? So let's use LeBron. Now, he wanted to go to Cleveland because he's from that area, so it makes sense, right? I can be the kid to change the narrative of my city team. But my point is, what did he go into? A historically, at best, bad organization. You got all these kids who are going to the Knicks, a badly ran organization. So what happens is you get guys who go to these teams, go to the situations where they were drafted in. I didn't choose them. I was chosen by them, and I gave you the best 5, 6, 7, 8 years of my life. And now I say now I want to go play somewhere else. I want to go play with this person. Why is that deemed such a bad thing when I gave you my blood, sweat, and tears for the first 5, 6, 7, 8 years of my career? Why can't LeBron?
Look, I'll give you that. I'm not against the player movement. I love the player empowerment, to be honest. So I'm not. My only issue with what you said was just saying that Shaq had done similar things.
Let me say this one more thing. When I said with Shaq, however you want to say it, traded, happened to be the right teams, he had a wealth of talent around him that he then can say what I would not have done. So it's easy to say what I would not have done. If you were born on the right side of the tracks, you can look back and say, well, I wouldn't have sold drugs. Well, some people, they felt that's all they had to do. I'm not justifying. I'm saying, Shaq, I got Kobe, who turned out to be great. I got all these other nice pieces around me. I had Penny Hardaway and nice pieces around me. I go to Dwayne Wade and nice pieces around me. Yeah, I can easily sit here and say I wanted to compete because it's easy because I had guys to compete with. And some guys are sitting there and they're looking around like LeBron, looking like Boobie Gibson is the best player I got. Get me out of here.
Yeah, look, again, I'm not against the player movement, and the super teams thing is not new.
Correct.
What's new is the player-generated super teams. That's what's new.
Agreed.
Player-generated ones. Because in the 80s, the Celtics with Bird were a super team. We can go further than that with Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, Wilt Chamberlain, Gail Goodrich. That was obviously a super team. The Celtics had super teams, right? So it's not new. Showtime, Lakers, and all that. But what's new is LeBron James in 2010 instituted the era of the player-generated super team. Even Boston, before that, with Ray Allen and Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, was a super team, but it was owners and general managers putting those teams together. The difference now is it's players doing it. And I love that. I love the players being empowered because if a team can break the contract and trade you, then a player can say, hey, I want to be traded. The team doesn't have to trade you, mind you. Like, if you got 2 years left, Oklahoma City could have easily said to Paul George, well, Paul, you got 3 years left. We got Russell Westbrook. Right. We think we can win now. So we're not trading you. So it goes both ways. The teams don't have to bow down and obey the players. But I like the player empowerment. But I do like what Shaq is saying. Like, this year, we got the best of both worlds. We got the player empowerment of Kawhi Leonard going where he wants to go. Paul George going where he wants to go. Anthony Davis going where he wants to go. And we got the other great aspect, the other world, which is great, of it only being dynamic duos versus super teams. And obviously I was saying Kawhi was going to the Lakers. A lot of other people saying it as well. I'm glad he didn't, though. I'm glad he had the mindset that I want to beat LeBron James rather than team up with him. And that's where, like, now we've got the best of both worlds. Player empowerment, they're going where they want, but parity as far as the elite teams, because now we have a ton of dynamic duos rather than the lopsided stuff we just had with Golden State.
No, I agree with that. I think it's going to make for the first time in maybe 5 to 10 years where you can say, I don't know who's going to win the championship. The last, 7, 8 years, you could walk into the NBA season and say it's probably going to be them or maybe them. That's about it. Now, you legitimately don't know. But also, I think what a contributing factor to this is people like Chris Broussard. Rob Parker. I think you guys contributed to this, and I'll tell you how. So let's go back to LeBron James, right? LeBron James.
Now, when you say, hold on, contributed to this meaning
this
what?
Meaning the idea of player movement. This meaning Let me pair up with guys. Let me go create quote-unquote super teams. Here's why. you've been studying and covering basketball and playing basketball your whole life. So you know, back in the day, we didn't talk championships as much. Yes, it was something you mentioned, but if a guy was nice, he was nice. Like, nobody was like, Dominique Wilkins ain't nice because he ain't won a championship. You like, Dominique Wilkins is nice. Reggie Miller is nice. Chuck Barkley, well, that boy can play. You didn't, and if maybe you'll touch on a championship, but we didn't hold that to being the end-all, be-all standard. Then comes talk radio, sports talk radio, and sports blogs, and then all these shows and, you know, odd couple shows and all these Twitter, where all of a sudden we have guys like LeBron, who legitimately we see is going to end up being a top 10 player at the time. Now it looks like he's going to be a top 1, 2, or 3. And we're saying, yeah, but Kobe Bryant's great. Yeah, but he doesn't have enough. Jordan had 6. So Kobe's like, I got to get more. Yeah, but LeBron's great, but Kobe has 5. LeBron's like, I got to get 1. Yeah, Kevin Durant may be legitimately the greatest scorer we've seen in the last 30, 40 years. Yeah, but he doesn't have a championship. We've created this narrative where you're only great if. So we put the pressure on these players where, well, shoot, I thought I was doing it the right way, giving my all, blood, sweat, and tears every night, even with some teams that are bad, even with an ownership that's bad, even with a coach that sucks. But now I got to go out and find a way to win a championship, or when my career is done, they're going to say, yeah, he was good, but. What did you just say about Steve Nash? You just said Steve Nash, he didn't even make it to finals. So now we have guys who are hearing that. They heard what you said about Barkley, about Nash, all these guys years later, because we didn't really say it back then. I didn't hear anybody say that about Karl Malone. They like Karl Malone out here balling, trying to win a championship. It's not his fault he ran into Jordan. So now you got guys like hearing that. Well, in order for me to be legitimized, I have to win.
That's an excellent point, and I've said that before. You're absolutely right. You know, you didn't have not local 24-hour-a-day sports talk shows until the 90s.
Right.
And then you didn't have national shows until even later after that.
Right,
okay,
exactly.
National radio shows. And of course, the debate shows. You're absolutely right. I mean, look, here's the greatest example. Jerry Logo is – I'm Jerry Logo.
We got it.
Right? Jerry West is the logo of the league. Jerry West's nickname is Mr. Clutch, but he lost the first 7 times he went to the NBA Finals. He's 1-8 in NBA Finals. There is no way, no how, to quote Rob Parker, that a player could be called Mr. Clutch today if he had lost 7 straight times in the NBA Finals.
It's worship Wednesday.
And you're
preach.
Right. You are right. You are absolutely right. I'm in full agreement with you there. Now, look, this makes all of us money. It makes you and I money because of the climate of sports has gotten so intense. It makes the players money. It makes the NBA money that we keep talking about it. We keep making it a year-round sport. So it's all good for the players, but you're absolutely right. The pressure is on them more than ever to win. Now, I will say this, Kelvin. I think it began with Magic and Bird. That's when it really was like winning was the ultimate thing, because Bird never led the league in scoring. Magic averaged 19 points a game. I mean, their stats were great, don't get me wrong, but they showed it's about winning, man.
No, I'm not arguing
and they were
that.
so unselfish that all they cared about was winning. And they began it. Then Jordan comes along and is not only the best individually, but he's running through the league in terms of championships. So that is where it began. And then put on top of that how the media climate changed with the radio shows, with the debate shows on television, with ESPN blowing up. And that is what this has led to. Throw on top of that social media. And now we have the climate we do. So I'm with you. Players, they should have the right to move, and they are pressured to win more than ever, no doubt. Do you agree with Shaq? Do you love the attitude? I would not have joined the super team. I wanted to beat my peers, not play with them. Your turn to weigh in, Kelvin. Let's get to these calls.
We'll
brother.
get to the calls. CB, man, Alex just dropped a banger on us, so I couldn't ignore that Kirk Franklin right there.
I know, man. I know. Alex doing it today.
I'm assuming this is Broad or Broad. Which one is Broad or Broad? Broad. All right, let's go to Broad in Iowa. That sounds derogatory if I say let's go to Broad. So I'm glad you said that's your name. Well, we're on the odd couple, Kelvin Washington.
I'm guessing that's your last name.
No, it's Brad. It's all right. What's up,
Brad.
Hey, so
look at Rob.
The question. We use these phrases, right, like super team. I guess what defines a super team? Like, if it's what the Warriors had, that's not going to come along for a long time. That was a blend of draft picks and some free agency, right? But if we're calling a super team now a team that has two really elite players, then that's exactly what Shaq was on. So I don't know.
Well, I think Brad, the definition, and it's not scientific, of course, but I think right now the common definition is 3 perennial all-stars.
And you got to add that it's also not only all-star, but it's how they came to get. We met somewhere.
Player
I went
generated.
to join. Exactly. So I think that's the key component. It's not just that you have talent on your team. It's that guys chose to link up and play together.
To Brad's point, I'll say this, Kelvin. Shaq was on what would qualify today as a super team, except for your part where you threw in players putting it together. Obviously, he always had great duos. He was part of great duos. But remember, when the Lakers won their first championship with Shaq and Kobe, it was Shaq, Kobe, and Glenn Rice. Mm-hmm. Now, Glenn Rice had been an all-star the 3 previous years. 2 years before he went to the Lakers, he averaged 26 points a game. Glenn Rice was one of the best shooters in NBA history.
Baller. Shout out to Michigan, from Flint, Michigan.
There you go. Now, he was traded there. And he was so disgruntled that even after they won the championship, he left.
What's up with that? Yeah, where's the documentary on that? I need to know what's going on.
He wasn't getting his shots. He was not getting his shots. They won the championship, but he averaged 15 points a game.
They gotta get over this shot stuff.
He was like Chris Bosh.
They gotta get over this shot stuff because, dude, now we have to refer to you as, and on the line right now is Glenn Rice, NBA champion Glenn Rice. Like, you are now a champion. So let's get over to these shot situations, guys.
It's a good point because if he had stayed with the Lakers, he may have won. Probably would have been a part of those 3 championships.
Right. I mean, you might have him instead of Rick Fox or something. I don't know, but you're right. Let's keep the calls going. Chris, let's go to Lewis in Santa Monica. You're on with the odd couple. Chris Broussard, Kelvin Washington for Rob Parker. What's going on?
Yeah, what's up, guys? Glenn Rice left because of exactly what Shaq was talking about. It's his mentality. He has a competitor's mentality, and he wasn't satisfied with that ring because prior to that, he was a franchise player. Do you see what I'm saying? So not all rings are created the same. You see what I'm saying? Right. And so when you have that alpha dog mentality, if you win, it's like taking a helicopter ride to Mount Everest. That's not the same as actually hiking it and climbing it. You see what I'm saying? And sports has the essence of competition. That's in its DNA. The art of sport is about facing competition at the highest level. And when you're an alpha dog on that level, you want to be challenged at the highest level, and whether you win or not, you're satisfied with the competition.
Lewis, let me throw this at you. That's a great point, and I think in a perfect world, in some utopia, then I would think most people would agree with you, right? Because we would look back and we would say, man, well, you know what? Karl Malone gave it all he had. Charles Barkley gave it all he had, and Reggie Miller, so on and so forth. But what happens is you can't, one hand, tell me rings matter, and then don't tell me if I don't win a ring, you're going to hold that against me. So you got guys like LeBron. We know how great he was. We witnessed it. We saw it. But he wasn't winning. He wasn't going anywhere. And now you're telling me I have to be stuck to a franchise that has done nothing but at best give me a Larry Hughes to play with. And now I have to stay here forever, even if my front office and my coach is inept. So you get what I'm saying? Are you going to hold that against me then? If I stay here for 12, 15 years and I don't win, are you going to hold that against LeBron if he stays in Cleveland and never wins a championship? Are you going to say at least he tried?
I think to his point, too, the caller, and I get what he's saying with Glenn Rice. If the shots had been a little more balanced, that year Shaq averaged 21 shots, Kobe 18, Glenn Rice 12. Now, granted, they're better than Glenn Rice. But if it had been a little more equitable, if he had been more like a Klay Thompson than maybe a Chris Bosh, then I think he would have stayed. And I get the mentality, Kelvin, you played ball. And I do feel like this. When I played in college, I was a role player. And I was fine with my role as a role player because I knew I wasn't the best player on the team.
Right.
Okay, so I'll go in there and defend, get after it defensively, just run the offense as the point guard. But if I've got star ability, I want to be a star. I would not. Now, Mark Aguirre was unique. He left Dallas where he was averaging 25 points a game and went to the Pistons, played with his buddy Isaiah Thomas. You know it well. You're from Detroit. And he accepted being a role player, like 15 points a game, I think the year they won it, maybe 14. But that's unique. I'm not mad at Charles Barkley for never winning a title, but being like, I want to be the star. I want to drive the bus.
And then he goes to Phoenix, when they got Kevin Johnson, a Hall of Famer. Dan Marley was
Kevin Johnson not a Hall of Famer. Could have been if he had stayed healthy.
I think he is a Hall of Famer.
Rob G,
check that. Rob G, check that. Kevin Johnson with the Phoenix, formerly with the Phoenix Suns.
See, you bringing in you got that Detroit in you, man.
Check that.
I deal
Rob.
with that every day with Rob Parker.
Listen,
you did the little fudging the facts.
I'm
Rob
with you.
Parker, he is not a Hall of Famer.
All right, we're gonna find that on the other side right now. What's trending, David Gascon? Watch.
Well, I'll tell you this much: Kevin Johnson is not a Hall of Famer.
Thank you, David. That's that Detroit, man. That Motown. Them brothers are sneaky.
I get it. You know what? You know what it was, Chris? Though, is that
he was great. He could have been a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, and see, I'm with Kelvin on this because Kevin Johnson and Charles Barkley deserve to be in the Hall of Fame because they were so good at NBA Jam.
Oh, man.
They were that good, but no, Kevin Johnson is not a Hall of Famer.
Kevin Johnson just never stayed healthy.
Yeah.
If he was healthy, we would be talking about him as one of the greatest small players ever.
I would even argue,
and probably one of the greatest point guards ever.
I would even argue if he stays the same career, but let's say they were able to beat the Bulls team, because again, once you get that championship, all of a sudden, you start to change the conversation a little bit. I'll give you another guy. Let me throw this at you. Chauncey Billups. I'm not saying he's in the Hall of Fame. I don't think he should. And this is one of my all-time favorite. I love watching him. That was like the heyday of me, right, getting in the industry. I was in Detroit. I loved it. I was at the Palace just about every game. But I don't think he should get in. But because he got a ring and he's a Finals MVP and he went to all these conference finals, people are like, oh, Chauncey Billups might be one of those people. But it's because he got that ring. And so like a Kevin Johnson, talent-wise, I think you would agree, he could be up there. He rivals many guys who were in there. Like if Tim Hardaway is one, Kevin Johnson, I'm sure looks like, why can't I be one? But that ring is what separated. And that's been my whole point with this conversation, CB, is that if we're going to place so much on that and so much is going to ride on that, then we've almost kind of forced these guys' hands to say, well, let me go do that. And if nothing else, if you're the NBA, then at some point you almost have to turn and embrace it and get an offseason like you did this year where it is chaotic and guys are flying all over the place. And just when you thought it was over, Russell Westbrook's gone. And just when you thought this, Kawhi ended up going to Clippers when you thought it'd be the Lakers. And it somehow has made the NBA more fun. It's something they've won the offseason. And now we go into the upcoming season having no idea who's going to win it.
No, it's great for the league. And speaking of the league, you know what time it is when you hear the funky music. That's right. Eddie House is in the house, the NBA champion, the FS1 NBA analyst, the man who would have done even more damage in the NBA had he played in this three-point shooting era.
Oh, man, that's
Mr. Sharpshooter himself, Eddie House. What's happening, man?
What's happening, man? How y'all doing?
Doing good.
We great. Now I love giving you those glowing intros. I should have been there when you were in Boston. I should have been the guy introducing everybody.
Oh, man, you should have been. I'm telling you, that was good for at least 2 more threes with that.
And that's a great point you said, CB, though. Eddie, you think about that, man, if I played nowadays and I was green lit to shoot 12, 15 threes in a game, could you imagine?
Yeah, but you drive yourself crazy thinking like that, man. It was what it was. I look at it as a pioneer, like I paved the way for these guys. Now, one of the many guys that were three-point shooters or specialists that kind of paved the way for where the league is now. So I'll take that, I guess.
We were talking before we brought you on, Eddie, about this era and the movement, and both Kelvin and I agree. With the 24-hour-a-day sports talk radio, all the debate shows on every day, there is more pressure than ever on these guys to win championships. And so we understand the movement and guys teaming up because it's like, look, if I don't get a ring, y'all going to be dogging me. And I'm not going to get my just respect and due. So they're teaming up to get rings. Do you agree that there's more pressure than ever on these guys to win titles?
Well, I wouldn't say it's pressure. I just think for themselves, they definitely want to win it. Everybody wants to win a title, but think about how many great players didn't, and it's only one winner year in and year out. I don't think that it's pressure on them. I think that what it is a sense of urgency, not pressure, but just a sense of urgency to try to get this ring, because guys are teaming up. So you try to team up with the right guy so you can give yourself an opportunity to get a ring. But these guys signing for 170, 200 million. There ain't no pressure with that. I'm telling you.
Well, they are turning down some money too.
True.
Exactly. See what I'm saying? So, at the end of the day, if they got a lot of money, they want to win. But at the end of the day, really, I think this is the difference of the eras. I think that the era that's gone now, it's the AAU era now. Before, it was guys that didn't really know guys from across the country. You might have seen them one time, and you weren't linking up. You was kind of putting them as like a rival, a guy that when you see him, you're going to go at him. These guys are coming together because they played in the NBA. This is the new model. This is what's going to happen from here on out, and it's because everybody is friends. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. I think that's dope. But I think that more so guys want to play with each other. I don't even think they're ring chasing, to be honest with you. I think they more so want to play with their friends than really ring chase. Because Kyrie has a ring already. KD had a ring. He just wants to play with his buddy.
And you know what that reminds me, Eddie House? It kind of reminds me of when you go to the pickup games, right? Your whole life playing them. You went with your boys, right? Hey, yo, you be going to hoop around 6 o'clock. Let's go. Hey, well, you call Mike, you call Jimmy, and you all went up there and you played together. So I think there's that element to it. But let me kind of switch gears and actually talk about what has happened and the moves that have been made. What would you say this offseason so far, outside of maybe like a Kawhi to the Clippers, but a move that you think was a great move that you can see bode well for some team this upcoming season?
I think Mike Conley and Bojan Bogdanovic. I think those moves for the Utah Jazz, really put them in a category where they can really make some noise. What they were lacking last year was a point guard that, first off, to stay healthy, Ricky Rubio, and then at times he's not a really good shooter, right? So the pick and roll, as dynamic as he is in it and great as passing, he's just not a threat to shoot it. Mike Conley is a threat coming off that thing. He can get into the teeth of the defense, finish with either hand floater-wise. And I think one of the most underrated point guards in the league. He doesn't get enough credit for how good he is defensively in pick-and-roll defense. We already know with Donovan Mitchell, I think they were missing that stretch four. And, they're going to be I think they're going to be real tough to deal with.
Eddie, let's go to the Eastern Conference. Ben Simmons just signed 5 years, $170 million to max. You, as we said earlier, were a shooter. I don't know. I don't think you've ever worked with Ben, but from afar, what would you say to him? Like, what would you do to fix his shot? Because he's obviously got to fix it, and I actually think some of it's mental too.
Well, of course, it's mental. Shooting is mental. If you don't have confidence in your shot, you're not going to make it. I think really if you look at his technique. His technique is flawed all over the place, from the bringing the ball up to the release to him not getting no air on his shots. If you see when he does make shots, they're in the paint, he's shooting a regular jump shot. It's not like, and even though it ends up one-handed, that's usually how you teach guys to start off anyway, to have zero technique or just learning. You start off with the one-hand shot against the wall just to get them comfortable with that motion. I think that's really what it is, his technique and his confidence. If he had better technique, something that he could always draw back to, like, okay, this is where I'm going wrong. I don't think he has anything, and that's also one of the negative effects of AAU basketball. You got a guy that's so talented and so big, he never has to shoot because he could bully his way, and his coach never developed it because they're winning basketball games. So you have to fault his coaches before for not catching him and say, hey, man, you got to develop this. And so to me, it's really his technique. And just getting confidence and shooting the right way, having a foundation. It's like going out. If you never played golf, you got to go get some lessons so you have a foundation. Everybody has fundamentals that you could draw back to in every sport, and I don't think he doesn't have any idea where to even begin, and I don't think anybody has coached him up on that. But I have a point about Ben Simmons, right? Where everybody was talking about D'Angelo Russell being traded, right? Possibly that was the reason why the Warriors were taking D'Angelo Russell. I wouldn't be surprised, and I think this is a good fit. If Philly has the opportunity and they're going to be missing a point guard that can shoot, you swap those two. If I'm the Warriors, I'm looking for a Ben Simmons because we got Kilt on the glass.
Could he replace Draymond in the future?
He could replace Draymond, but you could keep Draymond. Now you have two big ball handlers, two big rebounders, and Steph could do what he does, come off screen. Clay can do what he was. I really believe that would be a good move if it's not working out for the Warriors to shop D'Angelo Russell, which it possibly can work, but shop him with Philly because they'll get bigger. The Warriors will get bigger, and then they'll have a guy that's the primary ball handler. and he makes plays. That would be a good
I don't
pick.
hate that.
No, I don't hate that. I need you to screen that from the mountaintop, brother, and own that one. That's you. That's all you.
I might take that for TV tomorrow, Eddie.
Yeah.
Well, you got to give me my credit, though.
I'll give you your credit.
I like that a lot. Hey, Eddie, I'll get you out of here on this one, at least for me. I want to stay in the East, and one of the guys we've talked about, I guess you could say maybe the least, is because it's been the person that he's replacing. It's been Kawhi. It's been AD. But Kemba Walker in Boston, what do you make of that? Is that something that's just going to be the same, a little bit of the same? Could it be different? Do you expect more from him there? How do you like Kemba fitting with Boston?
Well, I like the fit a lot because he's a team player, and he's a guy, a humble guy. He goes out, he just plays the game. He doesn't do he's not going to ruffle the feathers. I think that it's a fresher breath air for Boston to have him come in because I really believe, I know for a fact that Kyrie Irving sabotaged that locker room last year with just the things that he said, trying to be a leader but just don't know how to be a leader. And he tried it, he failed at it, and what it did was rub the whole team the wrong way. It rubbed the organization the wrong way, and I think it's a breath of fresh air. They're going to get a guy that's he doesn't have the skill set that Kyrie, but he definitely is an all-star caliber player. I think he's a little different from Kyrie where he can even play off the ball and catch and shoot. He doesn't have to dominate the ball as much. You could even run pin downs for him where Kyrie is a guy that's going to pound the ball a little bit to get his and get to his spots. He's not going to be a guy that you could run some pin downs for and catch and shoot. So I think that's a good dynamic for Boston to have, and for Jason Tatum to have a guy that's willing to maybe just stand in the corner while he goes to work. And I think that's going to be extremely important for these young guys moving forward and the development of the young guys in Boston.
That's our man, Eddie House. We appreciate the knowledge, brother. Have a great weekend.
For sure. Take care, man.
Appreciate it, Eddie.
Yep. Kelvin, you got me thinking when you were talking about Kevin Johnson as a Hall of Famer, which he wasn't, but I look back at that 93 finals between the Bulls and the Phoenix Suns, and Michael Jordan, just for the youngins out there, you might even be in this boat yourself.
Okay.
The youngins. Jordan, these were Jordan's numbers.
Oh, they were
finals.
crazy. I can almost tell you them. I remember.
Go ahead.
Didn't he have 40? Didn't he average about 38? Then he had like 40 a couple of times in that finals.
He averaged 41 points. Averaged 41. 8.5 rebounds, 6.3 assists on essentially 51% shooting, 50.8% shooting. And was hot from three, actually. Hit 10 of 25 threes. I mean, come on.
No, it's outrageous.
That's the type of stuff that ends the conversations.
And mind you, he's averaging 41 in an era where, like, in those games, I bet you there were games that didn't even touch the hundreds, right?
Right, because surprisingly, because I thought about that too, surprisingly, both teams actually averaged, this is how close the series was, even though they only went 6. Both teams actually averaged 106.7 points.
That's impressive for that era.
Right, because you're right. Most of the times, it was in the 90s during that era.
Yeah, even the 80s. I went back and looked at 04 Pistons and Lakers. Man, only, I think, 1 or 2 games, 2 games made it in the 80s or 90s, and one was because it went to overtime. That's how it's just a different era.
Yep, no question about it. And look, we want to talk about the end of an era if we're talking about eras. Chris Paul, there was a story that came out today that he is likely, it's not guaranteed, but looking like he's going to start the season in Oklahoma City because there's no real trademark market for him. And look, I'm saying if he does, his career is essentially over. I think he'll put up some numbers maybe, but look, the best situation would be he's impressive enough because we talked about it off the air. He'll start, I guess, alongside Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Because Shai is going to start. Even though Chris is still better than him at this point, Shai is going to start because they're viewing him as their point guard of the future.
Right.
And so maybe, like you said, you play him and Chris together. Shai is a big guard, big point guard. And maybe Chris is impressive enough that a team, I've said Philadelphia, just in the back of their minds, keep an eye on him, keep an eye on Ben Simmons if he's not shooting the ball at all. And maybe you think about that, but it's not going to be pretty if Chris has to play in OKC, I don't think.
Well, it really, 2 things come out when I think of Chris Paul now. Other than the fact that he's going to be a Hall of Famer, he's a great player. We all know that. 3-1 and hamstring. And what I mean is he was up 3-1, he and the Clippers, against that Rocket team with a chance to finally advance to the Western Conference Finals. You know, never maybe make it to the finals. You never know. Then his hamstring, or they lose that one 3-1. They end up losing that series. His hamstring goes out a couple of seasons ago where they could have maybe beaten the Warriors and head to the finals, and his hamstring goes out. And I think those were his two moments to kind of get to where we thought he could get and kind of change his destiny, and they're gone, and I don't think he's going to be able to get those back.
No, that's a good point. That's a very good point.